상말ala testle nimang 상말ala. That means hello everyone.
Saludo a toda la gente. My name is LaGuardia Fletcher. I'm a professor of linguistics and ESL at LaGuardia Community College. And for the past basically 5 years, I have worked with a colleague, Dr. Lucy McNair from the English department, in offering professional development around something that we call language across the curriculum, which is aimed at giving training to faculty on how to see students' multilingualism and multi-varieties of Englishes as resources to be used in the process of learning throughout the college.
One thing I've noticed over the years of working with my colleague LaGuardia Fletcher is that our efforts have a lot to do with our larger efforts around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Language across the curriculum gives us this wonderful tool of translanguaging, which tells us not to look from the outside at each other, but from the inside. What is the experience of being you, of using all of your language resources? And so language across the curriculum has really had an impact on how we begin to know each other.
My language background is Black English, aka African American English, and also Caribbean English. Along with also me knowing ASL, I feel like I can connect to people like more.
The activity is about basically describing how language makes you feel, like around your body, like what types of stimuli or stimulus language, different languages that you speak activates throughout your body, and like basically drawing, using colors or colored pencils, drawing with the stimuli, what it affects in your body. Like, so I drew 2 different shades of colors, red and yellow and orange, and then green and sort of blue, to represent the 2 different languages in my life that I speak fluently. I speak Antiguan Creole and Standard British English. The language at home that I grew up around was Antiguan Creole, and that's the language from my heart that I know fluently and that I feel really comfortable speaking. And then on Standard British English is the language that I learned and that I had to use more in my head to sort of remember the intricacies of. So that's why I drew it around my brain region.
I would not allow students to speak their language during pre or post conference, right? Because it's a group of 8 or 9 students. And sometimes almost looks like it's something negative. Like I felt like the students were disrespecting me or they were disrespecting their colleagues and peers. Now I realize, no, it's okay to allow them to speak their language. Why? Because that's how they can make the connections. That's how they can make the connections with theory and practice and involving their culture and their language in it. So that really helped me a lot.
What language across the curriculum I think has allowed, and also a conversation on campus, is that we can enter it in wherever we are. So there's some faculty, for instance, who are just asking these questions about themselves. They're just really reflecting on their own language capacities. There's other faculty who are doing specific exercises with students to see how that might be effective. And then there's other faculty who have totally changed their curriculum. So it comes in at all different levels, and no one level is correct. It's really, each of us have our own history with language and coming to a sense of awareness about it.
I think language across the curriculum is a huge advantage that we have had this program. I can see already the impact it's had on people's thinking about language. I think for me personally, it helped me think about how as I think we put it in the seminar, we said that we would center language in the classroom and build things around that. And the class that I redesigned as a result of the seminar really helped me to think about language not just as a sort of add-on or something that I do occasionally, but something that I'm really weaving into all of our discussions. So I think that's really important. I think it brings out the question of how the role of language at the college and how we relate to language outside of just our own single classrooms. And I think it connects people across disciplines, which is also extremely important to have these conversations across departments and to really be thinking about how language works in classes. So if I teach writing, of course I'm very aware of language in the context of writing, but I don't always know how people are using it or thinking about it in other types of classes. So that was a really valuable part of it for me. Yeah.
I came to LaGuardia for this diversified what's that called, language, religion, people, and I feel like it's I take it very well because that's different mind, different language, and I'm able to use that in future reference. Like knowing how to speak Spanish or greet in Spanish. For instance, I'm able to say, what's my name? Hello, how are you? Formal talks, you know? And you always meet different type of people. So knowing different language, it comes in a great use.
So my language background comes from Mexico, which is like from what part of Mexico I'm from? It's from Puebla, around Mexico City. So like right there. And from my parents, they both come from a place called Puebla, and they migrated over here to New York, and from there they both met, and then they both speak a fluent language.
Hi, I'm Kenneth Adams, president of LaGuardia Community College. My native language is English, born and bred in New York, pero también hablo español, y eso conviene mucho, ya que nosotros somos una escuela de muchos estudiantes hispanos. And as I think everybody knows, we have students from about 150 countries who speak more than 70 languages. One of the reasons language across the curriculum is so important is it can help our faculty learn about language diversity at LaGuardia and learn how to check our assumptions and to think twice around a student's language background, for example. And we need to have faculty and staff really understand that a student's language background can be rich and layered and complicated, and we've got to dig in and understand it and be sensitive to it.
The event is basically talking about the different languages that we all speak, where our family speaks or where we speak, and how it affects our use of language. So I speak English and I also speak Chinese, a very rare dialect. It's called Taishanese. It's a language that was historically mainly used at home. So it's the language that I speak at home with my mom and my dad.
All right, I'm Derek Stadler. I'm Web Services Librarian and Head of Media Services at the library at LaGuardia. We can actually take advantage of that because of all the different resources that we have that are in different languages. Students can read an article in a database that can be translated into their own language. And it's not like there's only 3 languages available. There's actually up to 20 different languages that they can translate that into.
My name is Misan Doko. I'm an assistant professor in the English department. It's pretty simple. I'm monolingual. I only speak, read, write in English. At home, my parents primarily speak, write, communicate in Korean. These students have many different languages, and I don't have a pedagogical background in teaching students with different languages. I didn't really have that toolkit. So I felt like, yes, I needed to take this. Also, I wanted to support them. So what I learned from that, just in a very small, one small thing I learned that changed everything was an article we read about how multilingual students are challenged by academic words like however and nevertheless. And for me, I never paused at those words, I never thought twice about them, but it was an article about how students really struggle with those kinds of words, and because they don't understand it, they might miss the whole meaning of a paragraph. So I've been teaching vocabulary now, so we have charts with synonyms and antonyms and cognates. So that's one small way that my teaching has changed, but it's changed in many, many ways.
Oftentimes, we think of inclusive pedagogy and the need to build off students' backgrounds in the learning process, but too often I think their language backgrounds are left out of the equation. So language across the curriculum tries to bring in that need to look at students' languages as important background resources that we must build on in the classroom.
I hope that, in the years to come, that when a student comes into a classroom in LaGuardia and knows a different language and finds someone else who knows that language, that they feel comfortable speaking it. That the classroom is maybe different than life, that they actually don't feel embarrassed about it, that it becomes a resource. In the same way that if you know about electrical engineering, or you know about nursing, or you know about I don't know, how rivers flow, that you bring that into the classroom and it becomes part of the knowledge that you construct together. So I think this is where we're trying to really chip away at some bias and discrimination that has been in place for a long, long time and has been keeping us from actually collaborating together in a learning project.